Disclosure. I do not care what other people do with their faces. It's your prerogative whether you accept certain societal conditioning. We all do at some point. I'm just using trends to call out hypocrisy in Blackistan. Obviously, not all, but enough to call for conversation.
Yeah, how lucky you are to look the way you look now and to be the way you are. And you are perfect.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. And if it's your first time watching, welcome. I'm so happy you're here for the conversation. In this video, I wanted to speak on how insidiously acceptable featurism is, especially within the dynamics of Black women. Because as you can see in the intro videos, Black women have no issue expressing featurist opinions privately or publicly. After watching these videos, TikTok's bigoted ass algorithm sent me down an ethnic nose job rabbit hole. And it made me wonder if the futurism that's present in trends like extreme contouring and social media filters is correlated to the uptick in nose jobs within the Black community. And if so, why are we not just as loud about futurism as we are about isms like, say, colorism or even texturism, considering that all Black people of all shades can experience futurism? We know that BBLs exploded, which, in my opinion, destigmatized cosmetic procedures in general and kind of took away the need to be all natural within the Black community because we know how much weight Black women have placed on being a quote unquote natural beauty. And like this commenter said, nose jobs haven't been openly accepted, probably because it's seen as anti Black. I think in those jobs symbolizes a willingness to no longer hide insecurities and or the internalized desire for non-Black features behind the collective cultural vanity that Black people tend to boast as a part of our performative pro-Blackness. Black people openly transitioning our features from stereotypically Black features to features that are commonly found in other groups blows our cover and exposes our internalized isms in a way that's much more obvious than, say, dating out with the ulterior motive to phase your Black traits out of your bloodline or silently accepting the bottom tier in society. Because at least if we are at the quote unquote bottom, we love the way we look, right? We're desirable and everybody wants to be us because we're the blueprint, right? Right? Let's talk about it. Colorism gets a lot of flack, as it should. However, it seems that isms that can actually openly, and I say openly because colorism does affect light skinned people in a very covert way, but isms that can openly be shared with light skinned Black people seem to be mentioned more passively or swept under the rug by the Black community. Why is that? It's almost indicative of a thought pattern that as long as light skinned people can experience this struggle with me or be humbled by this ism as well, we don't really care about it because it gives Black people who don't identify as light skinned a leg up in the race to white proximity. Because we never see the same energy and disdain for wearing curly wigs instead of 4C Afro texture wigs or the quiet relapse back to creamy crack or even extreme contouring that we see toward colorism when all of those things are just potential signals of internalized isms or at least displaying a longing to be approximated to whiteness or the quote unquote exotic. I don't knock it because nothing's wrong with appreciating an aesthetic, but let's just call a spade a spade. The admiration for the aesthetic rarely ever ends there. It usually morphs into a deep seated hate for anyone who genetically possesses those desired features. To covertly disguise these versions of featurism and even texturism is usually justified with excuses like, well, I've quote unquote seen Black people, aka brown skin exoticals, with these features. And while that may be true, we've also seen white/light Black people. So why is there so much more vitriol toward being light skinned, even if the light skinned person isn't a colorist? But like Amanda Seales said, Black people love associating Blackness with struggle. And I think being light skinned is having an easily perceived proximity to whiteness. And it's a visual indicator that you don't belong to the tribe because you can't identify with the same struggle. Okay, whatever, that's fine. However, colorism is often used as a deflection from how dark skinned Black people use the isms to ostracize each other and even light skinned people. With that said, let's look into the adages of wasted yellow and pretty for a dark skinned girl. I saw a couple posts on Reddit that I thought were interesting, and some implied featurism is simply to discredit the beauty of dark skinned women, but I disagree with that point, which I'll explain later. But let's take a look.
I think we need to revisit what we classify as Eurocentric and Afrocentric, or step away from that altogether. First, Europe as a whole has a wide range of facial features and is not this blonde, non-brown eyes, small, frame, thin nose feature.
When I look at Bulgarians, Romanians, or the Greek, they themselves don't fit. What we claim are Eurocentric features despite being European. On the flip side of that, Afrocentric features also is not a one-style-fits-all. For the most part, I will say our hair texture is without a doubt a defining feature. However, looking at Ethiopian people, South Sudanese people, the Khoisan people who have narrow noses, small faces, light skin, monolids, all being African but not abiding by what we consider Afrocentric features. So because of that, I have a hard time accepting the idea of something being Eurocentric as it relates for featurism because there is a lot of contradictions and inconsistency.
I wanted to point this out for a point I'll make later because I don't consider all small or narrow features to be Eurocentric, just not large or overtly ethnic.
I don't think featurism is spoken about enough. Your hair type, nose shape, eye color, and lips can be just as important as your skin tone when it comes to how people treat you. I do find it interesting that certain features are deemed ugly on Black people, but attractive on other races. I think the Kardashians and other influencers are proof of that. I do think featurism plays a much bigger role than we give credit to. However, I feel as if majority of the time it's just the label Black that changes people's perception of you. Never discussed features before. Definitely a factor my features have been criticized many times. However, I do believe colorism is a bigger problem. They'll accept you long as you are red or high yellow, but never black-skinned. There are so many pretty girls who get overlooked because they're black-skinned.
Okay, but who is they? Because this could also apply to the Black community.
Y'all clocked it in the comments. Featurism is definitely real, but it's only really brought up when a dark-skinned woman is considered beautiful by many. It's like a dark woman is not supposed to be beautiful, like she's a defect. A lot of Black people don't realize how anti-Black and self-hating they are.
Thank you. You are getting what I am saying. Some people, Black women specifically, only mention featurism when a dark-skinned Black woman is prettier than them and sometimes actually go feral.
I'm glad this person acknowledges that Black women only want to speak on isms, not because isms are wrong, but because the ism wasn't beneficial to them in a specific situation. It's exactly how they do light skinned women who achieve anything. But also, this isn't true. Or at least it's only one of the truths about featurism.
Yeah, I don't like it when people only talk about featurism when it pertains to dark-skinned women. I think it happens because light-skinned women's beauty is never too rarely questioned. So with dark-skinned women, people often want to find a reason she is pretty. Very annoying. Featurism is very real, but we should not just use it as a way to question the beauty of dark-skinned women.
What people don't know is that these slim features, like a narrow face, a smaller nose, and all are actually very common features in Nilotic African people like Anak Yai, for example.
I agree. Paint her white and she'd look odd. Nothing about her is European.
Like the last one, this isn't true. People are just as quick to call a light skinned woman ugly for having stereotypically Black features. But there's a lack of empathy for light skinned women who experience featurism because I think there's normally a constant unspoken beauty pageant happening between Black women. Everyone's looking to win. In the same way, I've heard light skinned women think they look better simply because of their light skin. I've also heard dark skinned women with narrow features use featurism as justification for why they're more beautiful than a light skinned person with unambiguously Black features. When in reality, benefiting from featurism doesn't mean you're prettier than someone with ethnic features, unless you internalize white supremacy, of course, because you can still get ate up by facial harmony and symmetry. Small features doesn't equal pretty. I meet white women all the time with smaller features than me, but they look at me and know what's up.
I get why people are against the word Eurocentric and how it's used concerning fully African women, but I kind of hate the deflection and swerving on this sub when the featurism topic comes up, and featurism is something that Black people of all skin tones can benefit from. However, people focus on dark-skinned women, especially in the modeling industry, because they want to highlight how things such as featurism and texturism mean that not all dark-skinned people are treated the same, despite them facing colorism the most. A dark complexion can be overlooked if your features are more digestible or less stereotypically Black. Wider features. Having smaller features makes you a more palatable Black person to a white audience. There's nothing wrong with pointing that out, and this is coming from a dark-skinned person who benefits from featurism. People have pointed out how my nose is slim and how they wish their nose was slimmer. A lot of people in the Black community hate their features. These women's features are still very much African, and they're still very much Black women, though. No one is denying that.
I personally completely agree with this take. Inokia doesn't have a single European feature. Her nose is slim. And I think the term Eurocentric is used because Black people love approximating themselves to whiteness, one way or another. Or at least that's the baseline Black people use for perfection.
Don't all races have some kind of featurism then? And also, my problem is how that word is only used for beautiful dark-skinned women. But I think I get what you mean.
I get it, but I think people mainly focus on dark-skinned women to highlight how you can benefit from isms despite being the victim of another ism, if that makes sense. People ignore how even light-skinned people who don't benefit from featurism or texturism are bullied, despite them benefiting from colorism. Also, I don't know if it's featurism necessarily, but white people with wide, flat, or a hawk noses get made fun of within their own communities. Their deal is a small nose, even though we know a lot of them don't have small noses.
Intersectionality was coined for the broader aspects of this, such as the intersection of race and gender, but that definitely applies and the finer details like color, texture, and features. I'm mixed and light, and I also have more black features and coarse textured hair. I think it's important to acknowledge that this stuff is complex and impacts us in very different ways.
Exactly. And this is my exact point. No one wants to speak on featurism and sometimes texturism in some situations. And I suspect it's specifically because light skinned Black people can experience these at probably nearly the same rate. So you mean to tell me that I have to be a freedom fighter against your internalized colorism because I'm light skinned? But if a light skinned person is being bullied for not benefiting from futurism and you do benefit as a dark skinned person, you just get to laugh with everyone else and feel good that a light skinned person is considered uglier than you? So it's not your job as a person with a privilege to make sure that people understand there's beauty in all features, just like I have to promote beauty in all shades. How hypocritical.
Would a dark-skinned woman who looked like Meg the Stallion, Ice Spice, or Glorilla be called pretty by most black folks? If the answer is no, that is the reason why. Folks are much harsher on the looks of dark-skinned black women.
I think some people cannot for the life in them fathom that a DSBW is pretty without bringing up a random excuse.
Exactly. They think it's pro-black women when it's actually anti-black women.
It's not anti dark skinned Black woman, it's anti Black in general because they're suggesting that the only saving grace these women have are their skin tones. They've absolutely called all of these women ugly before, which means it has nothing to do with skin tone and is everything to do with featurism. Now, let's look at a couple of TikToks on the concept of wasted yellow.
There's a video on TikTok of a light skinned girl saying that she doesn't think that she's recognized by people as being light skinned because she has certain other features like kinkier hair. And it reminded me of a old Black Southern expression called "all that yellow gone to waste." And all that yellow gone to waste is meant to describe a lighter skinned Black person that would typically reap all the benefits of colorism, but instead also encounter featurism and texturism. Because while they are light skinned, they also have features that are typically Black or Negro, such as a bigger nose or wider lips or kinkier hair. And so all that yellow going to waste simply just describes the intersections of lighter skinned Blackness, featurism, and texturism. It's just a really interesting conversation because you shouldn't want to aspire to get the benefits of colorism. I'm not saying that that's what this TikToker is doing, but on the same end, it's also this recognition that there are even layers to the colorism that people seemingly benefit from or don't benefit from. I did a video earlier on the term "all that yellow going to waste," and a number of people were talking about how they are tired of this subject and that we should lay it to rest in terms of discussing colorism, light skin, dark skin. And I would love to be inclined to agree, but the problem is there are real life consequences to texturism, to featurism, and to colorism. Just think about the reverse of "all that yellow gone to waste" is "pretty for a dark skin girl." And I know a lot of younger folks are probably more familiar with that statement. And what "pretty for a dark skin" is doing is highlighting that some people can see what would be perceived as beauty, certain features that are perceived as beautiful, whether they be aligned with European constructs or not, but the "for a dark skinned girl" part puts a limit on that perceived beauty because the dark skin makes you inherently ugly in their eyes.
So let me be clear, because I know a lot of the things in here are referring to a quote unquote they. And by they, they're referring to the overarching white supremacist structure we live under. However, I don't really take that into consideration because even with us living under that structure, Black people are very siloed, right? We're so siloed to the point that we've proven over and over again that in our little, bubbles, we create our own culture. So, not saying that white culture is not ever going to affect us or influence us, but we are very deliberate about what we pick and choose to influence us. Um, like even like with cuisine, right? We are very specific about, our cuisine, but there are several things in white America that we're just like, nah, fuck that, we're not gonna eat that shit. Right. So to me, we're very picky and choosy about what we take from they. So while we don't interact with them on a micro sense and just more in like a macro sense, we still somehow manage to adopt their beauty standard. So, based on these Reddits and videos, it feels like there's an underlying inferiority complex that some dark skinned women have about their skin tone sometimes that makes them feel that quote unquote pretty for dark skin has to actually do with skin tone. To me, it's the same delusion that convinces them that we're not affected by colorism as lighter people, but go figure. Because if you objectively think about both concepts, in reality, it's about features. Because ugly for a light skin or wasted yellow and pretty for a dark skin are literally equivalent when the whole concept of internalized hatred of black features is taken into consideration. They've just found a very roundabout way to be featurist while making it seem like it's about colorism to maintain discord. While skin tone is a quick visual indicator of your proximity to whiteness in the Black community's superficial hierarchy, features, even more so than skin tone, is used to determine your proximity to Blackness and determine whether you can be considered beautiful by the Black standard or not. The more stereotypically Black your features are, the quote unquote less beautiful you are. So featurism isn't just to discredit the beauty of dark skinned women. It's also used to humble light skinned women who don't fit the stereotypical light skinned phenotype, both of which are anti Black. Somebody left this comment on my video about Kelly, and I had to ask this question about whether they think the Black community basically made her a beauty icon because she benefits from featurism. Someone who also benefits from featurism agrees that's why. Because if we look at this Reddit that says,
Featurism is a weak argument because it exists in all cultures. Beautiful people have to be beautiful. Typically, people have to have the right cocktail of features to be seen as beautiful. Large or crooked noses aren't attractive on European people. Same with big ears, thin lips, and sunken eyes. Also, far and close eyes remain hotly debated, and big foreheads. There are so many features in every culture that gets ripped apart. If featurism didn't exist everywhere, we wouldn't have plastic surgery as large as it is. And seeing women walk around with fake lips all the time.
I disagree with this. There are many women with stereotypically Black features who are beautiful, but still get made fun of for their looks by the Black community because they don't have smaller features. Ari Lennox. I think people need to consider why they see wide noses and formerly, but not as much, big lips as not beautiful. And a lot of Black people also have these features, but people love to act like the majority of Black people don't. When you observe the people that the Black community praises for their beauty, they tend to have features that are closer to the European ideal. Light skin or small features, and in this case, or loose curls.
why is Kelly the beauty standard and not Ari? Especially considering that more people look like Ari. They're both pretty and dark skinned. And although people like Coco Jones and Normani are beautiful dark skinned women that have ethnic features, no one is bashing their looks like Ari, but they're also not being labeled beauty icons like Kelly. Why is that? And I also saw people trying to call Jackie Aina ugly, who, in my opinion, has quite literally turned herself into a beauty icon. Look at this. Now look at her face. Masculine, even without makeup, she's pretty to me. But again, I don't wear white supremacist glasses. I've never followed her, but I see her all the time, and never once have I thought, damn, she's ugly. So why do you think they're calling women like her and Ari ugly and masculine? I think the said unsaid, as Kelly put it, is that Black people hate Black facial features. When you deduce the difference between a wasted yellow and a pretty forward dark skinned girl and an unambiguous Black person whose perceived ugliness would be expected, the determining factor is stereotypically Black features. However, we like big lips and anything that's associated with Blackness that other groups are willing to pay for. We like it. I've had white women ask me if I have fillers, and I'd be confused, like, wait, we do that? And then I found out that we do because we like plump, softer shaped lips. And there aren't many features on a face that could be considered exclusive to Blackness. So let's just go ahead and say it. When I say we hate Black features, I don't mean features. I mean, we hate stereotypically Black shaped noses. Turns out, y'all don't like Negro noses and Jackson 5 nostrils like y'all say y'all do. I remember I broke my nose as a child and remember how upset my mom was. And I remember her looking very concerned and asking the doctor, would it change the shape of my nose? And now I know why. So we can be honest about it. We place a stigma on having stereotypically African/Black shaped noses, i.e., wider, more prominent nostrils or flatter, rounder nasal tips. But we all know black noses come in all shapes and sizes. But I think the disdain is toward any shape that has overtly ethnic characteristics. Again, proof of this is light skinned women with stereotypically black features being called ugly. I don't think it registers as featurism because it's aimed at a person who might benefit from colorism at some point, and that may lead to the light skinned person's perceived ugliness to be ignored. Hence, are you pretty or just light skinned? That suggests that light skin is pretty, but black prominent Africanoid features are not, especially if it's your nose. Even that are you pretty or just light skin trend on TikTok. How did we not call that out as the anti blackness that it is? Oh, yeah, because isms are cool if they're aimed at light skinned people. My bad, I forgot. Let's look at this excerpt I pulled from medium.com about this lady's experience being a quote unquote wasted yellow.
The worst thing I have ever heard in my life was, "You're ugly for a light-skinned girl." Growing up with big lips, big nose, big light brown eyes, with hair that could give a ewe a run for her money, I was the brunt of millions of jokes because most lighter-skinned girls had a better texture of hair, with smaller features. Even my own mother called me ugly, but that is a whole different story for another day. What hurts the most? I was ridiculed by my own people. As an adult, I get even more disgusted when dark-skinned men approach me and say, "I really think you're pretty. I love light-skinned women." Or, "I like you because you're light." Well, I think dark-skinned people are beautiful as a whole. Dark skin is just unique, beautiful, smooth, glistening in the sun. But that is not the only reason to like someone. It grabs my attention, but I don't tell them I'm interested because you're dark. What is the obsession with lighter skin? Why are foreign-looking women praised while us, African-American, non-exotic women are slandered, rejected, ignored, made fun of? You would be cute if your hair wasn't natural. You would look mixed if your hair was straight. Cry me a river.
Exactly. It's crazy to be ridiculed by people who look just like you. But anyway, we hear people disparaging black women who have stereotypically black shaped noses all the time. I think size matters less depending on the shape, and I'll point that out later. Now, let's look at this concept of a wasted yellow in action. Here's an example of someone basically calling a popular basketballer a wasted yellow due to her prominent, stereotypically black features, alluding to the fact that she looks like a caveman. I'm trying to see if she got 10 toes. Tell her run that bag like a Flintstone. This chopper make him dance, nigga get low. Finna let it splash if it's smoke, get a headstone. I'm I'm trying to see if she got 10 toes. Tell her run that bag like a Flintstone. I'm trying to see if she got 10 toes. Tell her run that bag like a Flintstone. I'm trying to see if she got 10 toes.
That's going crazy.
Yeah. But where is she ugly? Even with prominent features, she has facial harmony and a symmetrical face. So we know what it is. Because why would you say she needs to have her light skin card revoked when she's damn near a white passing skin tone? She does have a very unique lip shape and wide set mouth, but we know why they're saying that she should have her light skin card revoked. It's because the shape of her nose. And then someone had the nerve to say black people don't look like this. Lies. I know 10 people, men and women, that look just like her, and I bet her black parents does too. Wow, would you look at that? Her whole light skinned family has those exact same features. Nasal featurism isn't just to shame women who have a combo of conventionally unattractive features. It's also used to humble women who generally benefit from lookism even with their ethnic features, which just reinforces my point. We need to start calling out featurism no matter who it's aimed at. It's anti-black either way. I saw this post and thought she had a point.
There's really not a lot of representation of beautiful women with big noses in the media. And I just want to say baddies with big noses, like, that's a thing. And you shouldn't change yourself for standard. And because of that reason, I don't think I'll get work done. Like, I just feel like there needs to be more representation of beautiful women with a hunker, you know?
And I agree, there isn't a lot of representation for not just big noses, but big old stereotypically black noses. While there are people with prominent ethnic features that love themselves, I think featurists outweigh the self lovers and have many times shamed black people with stereotypically black features into the shadows. And I think there are way more big nosed baddies than we think prancing around with big stereotypically black noses. They've just been able to hide it with techniques like extreme contouring. They get into contouring the motherfucker so much you don't even realize it's them when they take it off. I put Megan Thee Stallion here because people think she got a nose job, but I just think she has a makeup artist who's really good at contouring because she shows herself all the time with no makeup and she has her stereotypically black nose. And I think this is a good transition into talking about how pop culture only furthered the acceptance of featurism in the black community. So let's talk about how the nose shape black people prefer shows up in trends like contouring. And when I say black people, obviously I mean black women. But the irony is these folks tried to call Jonathan Majors fine. And nothing is wrong with his stereotypically black features. Actually, that's my favorite part of his face. It's his head shape and those beady ass eyes that just make it's just a no for me. But it's crazy that they accept these features on men but shun their black daughters for inheriting them. I found these articles on contouring that I found pretty interesting. Let's skim them. Okay, y'all, my bad. I don't feel like reading this shit. So y'all can either pause to read this Instagram post or just keep going and listen to this man's featurist ass commentary behind a video and just kind of watch for the changes in her face.
But anyways, that was the sound of his skin cracking like pork rinds. But anyways, here's what she had to say about her video on Instagram. She said, let me give you a quick hashtag nose job. Nose job, rather, nose emoji, star emojis. Email me now to get on my VIP list for my full and detailed tutorial in a city near you at deliciouscontour@gmail.com. I need to do that. I got a big Negro nose. Go ahead, Delicious. Go ahead and give yourself a delicious white nose. You're a smart woman. Now, you can make millions off of teaching these hoes how to do that because, you know, these niggers just hate their noses. They love to put their noses in somebody's business. Apparently, it makes it bigger, flatter, and wider. But anyways, let me know.
Yeah, she look like LaToya Jackson.
Delicious is beautiful.
So Delicious didn't like that nigga nose she had, that wide nose spread across her face. She wanted to get a little nose like Lil' Kim.
Delicious has always had a full nose, big lips, strong features. Well, Delicious decided to clear up those rumors. Now, Delicious claims that she's gotten work done, but it's never been to her face. So although she looks completely different than she did before, it's all because of contouring. Let her tell it. I don't know, y'all. I don't know how much contouring can take this nose right here to this nose right here, but let's see if she can make it happen. So her face went from looking like this before the contouring to this. I don't know. I don't see much of a change. You guys have to let me know exactly what you think. I personally still think she did have a nose job. I just don't think she went extreme with it like most people.
So now on to the article about Instagram making the girl insecure about her nose.
Nose contouring is a popular makeup technique which involves shading and highlighting to create the illusion of slimmer features. It's adored by makeup artists and beauty enthusiasts online. As a black woman, though, with a naturally wide bridge nose, it used to stir up a sense of shame in me. For years, we have been conditioned to believe that narrow noses are desirable and more attractive. Throughout history, the daintiest features were admired on the faces of movie stars, like Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly, and other classic white beauties. The black actresses who managed to break into the movie industry during this era typically had Europeanized features too. Think Dorothy Dandridge and Lena Horne, whose appearances were deemed more palatable in an unaccepting society. Since then, black women have been influenced to strive towards Eurocentric beauty standards. Some stars have even been encouraged to go as far as cosmetic surgery to change the shape of their noses permanently. Nose contouring is a popular makeup technique which involves shading and highlighting to create the illusion of slimmer features. It's adored by makeup artists and beauty enthusiasts online. As a black woman, though, with a naturally wide bridge nose, it used to stir up a sense of shame in me. For years, we have been conditioned to believe that narrow noses are desirable and more attractive. Throughout history, the daintiest features were admired on the faces of movie stars, like Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly, and other classic white beauties. The black actresses who managed to break into the movie industry during this era typically had Europeanized features too. Think Dorothy Dandridge and Lena Horne, whose appearances were deemed more palatable in an unaccepting society. Since then, black women have been influenced to strive towards Eurocentric beauty standards. Some stars have even been encouraged to go as far as cosmetic surgery to change the shape of their noses permanently. People of all backgrounds dabble in nose contouring, but the many black women I've seen gravitate to the trend feels harmful to me. Why? This nose-focused beauty standard is rooted in white beauty ideals. The slimming technique has prompted many black women, including me, to attempt to sculpt and slim down our features. The connotations are sinister. The suggestion is that this is the only acceptable way we can present ourselves online or in real life. It's a saddening regulation to live by. Head to TikTok and Instagram, and you'll spot countless makeup tutorials posted by black women under the hashtags JazMelaninMakeup and Black Girl Makeup. Plenty of these tutorials show black women applying harsh, light concealer to their nose bridges in a bid to tweak and conceal their natural features. Countless non-black beauty influencers such as Patrick Starr and Carly Bible also practice nose contouring, and as a result, the technique became a vital part of my makeup process. I would shade around my wide bridge and cocoon my broad tip with light concealer lines, copying the meticulous procedure step by step. In all honesty, it left me disappointed. My nose looked alien on my face. The damaging notion that my nose should look narrower fueled the complex I had over its shape while growing up. As a young girl, my nose didn't match the smaller noses around me in the predominantly white area I lived in. This bothered me most as a young adult, when posting selfies to Instagram became the social mode of existence. I lost confidence, assuming a problem with my nose's natural wideness. Developing into a woman alongside the rise of beauty conditioning on social media heightened my feelings of self-consciousness. Instead of flaunting my face in selfies from all angles, I refrained from taking central shots of my face. Subconsciously, I tilted my head to the side in photos in an effort to make my nose appear slimmer. The same beauty complex I inherited prevails among many black women today, as we continue to be influenced by makeup tutorials.
So luckily, her story ended positively, where she kind of developed this appreciation for her own black features. But we know a lot of times it doesn't actually end that way. The hypocrisy for me comes when people criticize others who get nose jobs but will still taunt a person for having a big nose before the surgery. What's the difference between someone who does extreme contouring and someone with a nose job that contoured their nose? Literally nothing. One is just permanent. But just based on these examples, most are inspired by a stereotypical slim, angular, Eurocentric nose. So if you're a hypocrite that wears extreme contouring and you down talk nose jobs, if you don't got the money for the nose job, just say that because you want it. So much so that you spend time contouring yourself into a new identity. I personally think social media filters didn't help either because it gave people who aren't good at makeup and contouring the opportunity to show themselves what they look like with a less ethnic nose structure. So I do think the oversaturation of contouring and filters distorted what some people thought they looked like to the point that there was an uptick in nose jobs in a very unsuspecting group, Black women. So before I get into showing these nose jobs, I did a bit of research on nose shapes because I keep seeing people say that the noses that inspired them can't be called Eurocentric because they can be found on Black people too. Okay, sure. But I think the distinguishing factor is that the rate at which the trait is actually found. Most places in Africa are hot as fuck, so prominent nostrils are an evolutionary trait that made it easier to breathe in the heat. Thin nostrils are indicative of needing to protect your brain from cold temps. Some people that I keep hearing benefit from having Eurocentric features are these two lovely ladies, who, in my opinion, don't have a single European feature. They just have smaller, more narrow African noses, in my opinion, with rounder tips and more defined nostrils, compared to the pointier, more angular or hawkish noses with thin nostrils that the white women right here have. So, y'all tell me who these nose jobs and contouring reflect more. I found this research by this plastic surgeon who was breaking down the desired nose shapes by cultures, but let's just skip straight to Africa. So he says in diverse African cultures, nose shapes are celebrated. To many, the broader and the flatter one, the better. With this being a matter of cultural pride for them, there is very strong emphasis on natural features and less societal views to conform to any kind of aesthetic standard. Cosmetic surgery is less prevalent, and often what is celebrated is one's own unique features, or at least we like to make people believe that's how we feel. Because I think anyone with stereotypically West African features would beg to differ. And then this other article by a plastic surgeon says that narrow is out, and plastic surgeons here in Boston and across the country are seeing fewer and fewer requests for the quote unquote perfect nose. Instead, men and women alike are trending towards smaller changes that showcase the uniqueness of their natural features. More and more people want to highlight their heritage, ethnicity, and the uniqueness of their facial features rather than downplay or cover them up. Hence the quote unquote ethnic nose job. But let's take a look at some of these quote unquote ethnic nose jobs that TikTok showed me.
Girl, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Already did it. Already did it. What my
And I'm bad
patient
like the
wanted.
Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a Ken. Like Jazzy, Stacy, Nikki. All of the Barbies is pretty.
All of the Barbies is bad. It girls, and we ain't playing tag. Rad, but he spanked me when I get bad. I'm in LA, Rodeo Drive. I'm in New York, Madison Ave.
You lazy.
Little mama, show me how you move it. Go ahead, put your back into it. Do your thing like it ain't nothing to it. Shake.
No, I'm drifting, catch you slipping, won't be back again.
The way you feel.
One kiss is all it takes.
Falling in love with me.
Let's go. Welcome to the main event. Applying pressure, but I promise I ain't make it then. In their heads, living free. I ain't paying rent. Wake up in the AM making G's like Mercedes Benz. Whoa, yeah. Please don't take offense. It isn't you. I'm just not interested in making friends.
Like it?
I don't think these nose jobs are very ethnic. Well, maybe not this one. I think whoever her doctor is, 10 out of 10. He did a great job maintaining ethnic character in her nose. But if by ethnic they mean the patient is of color, sure. But it's pretty obvious where the inspiration for these nose jobs came from, which, according to that research and according to our just overall narrative that we like to push publicly as Black people, you think that our inspiration for our features is the motherland and that we wouldn't be touching our features. But in reality, we are, whether it's uh, permanently or just by packing on makeup. Don't get me wrong, they look good. These doctors are incredible. And I'm not knocking those jobs. I'm very bipartisan when it comes to cosmetic surgery. And I respect anyone who's not afraid to let what they truly believe reflect in their reality. But I wanted to point out that the girl is saying, well, Black people have these features as justification to avoid being branded a self-hater, failing to realize that the feature that she's inspired by probably still derives from white ancestry. And as I read through the comments, there was overwhelming support and agreements with that thought pattern. But to me, if you have to justify it, you feel guilty. And in that case, it's because you're trying to play dumb. A distinguishing trait in Black noses isn't the size necessarily, but usually the nostrils or width or flatness of the tip. Leaving the nose big just makes it a large nose, not ethnic. Anyone can have a big nose. Even on a white person, I would think some of those noses are large noses. And a few of the women already had relatively small noses before removing the ethnic character from their nose. This proves it's not about size. People don't like the shape of African noses. Think about Ice Spice. She has a small nose that takes up very little surface area on her face. So let's be real about why people are calling her ugly. It's the stereotypically Black shape of her nose. But when you think about people like, say, Victoria Monet, who's obviously very beautiful and who has a large nose, she catches no flack because of the Eurocentric shape that she got from her father, who's obviously mixed with European ancestry. So using a brown skin exotical as your beauty standard isn't hiding the internalized white supremacy. It's just a roundabout way to go about it. Let's take the Obamas as another example. And I'm not saying Obama does or doesn't have the ideal nose. I'm just saying he looks just like his white ancestor, and Sasha has the same nose. So attempting to justify your desire for a nose that is Eurocentric with the fact that it's on a Black person doesn't mean the nose isn't Eurocentric. Like I said, people just want to play dumb. Black people can inherit features from their white ancestry just like any other ancestor. Dark skin doesn't mean you're not mixed. Obviously, brown skin exoticals exist. So pointing to the dark skinned mixed person who inherited features from their European ancestry and saying, we're the same skin tone, so if she has this feature, I can have it too. No, boo. One, stop doing mental gymnastics to approximate yourself to whiteness. And two, chances are you would never have gotten that feature because you're of 97.9% African descent, and that's okay. It doesn't mean your nose isn't cute. And nothing is wrong with having that beauty standard, but just be honest and don't be condescending to people who make the change instead of spending hours contouring every day because you don't want to admit to yourself that you don't see beauty in Black features. And then on the flip side, stop ostracizing people for inheriting those features genetically. Featurism, just like any other ism, can be weaponized against anyone, not just dark skinned women. I want to point this out because Black people use any reason to approximate people to non Blackness, even if you are Black and identify with your Blackness heavily. And they pick and choose when they want the proximity to whiteness or non Blackness to be positive or negative. The crazy thing to me is that if you have a stereotypically Black nose, people will make a point to make sure you know or at least feel like you're ugly by regularly telling you that your features are not European looking enough. So, why gaslight someone out of making a change to their appearance that they've been tormented for or called ugly for? But then at the same time, if the Black community is successful in gaslighting you out of making a change, they'll use your features as a symbol of how much they love Blackness to the outside world while still actively tormenting you for having said Black features. It's a literal mindfuck. But it's also used to disguise the internalized isms that are rooted in white supremacy. More shocking coming from the Black women who usually mask their anti-Blackness as Black pride. But they're also the same ones who will say that Black women on social media with unambiguous features are anomalies, as if all Black American women are benefiting from isms. Yeah, right. And obviously, this video is about colorism between Black women. And to wrap up that point, I wanted to point out this Reddit that says that featurism is a subset of colorism, but I think it's the reverse. I think colorism is a subset of featurism because obviously the color you are is a feature that you have. But I think both of them are weighted equally. However, colorism is pointed out more. And I personally think featurism is swept under the rug in an attempt to even the playing field in the not so secret race to white proximity against light skinned Black women. And just based on what's happening, I can see that unambiguous Black women who don't benefit from featurism happily accept their role as collateral damage on the sidelines because they have no issue living vicariously through dark skinned women who do benefit from featurism. It's like, even if they know they're coming in last in the race and could team up with a light skinned person with her exact same features to tackle a toxic issue that they have in common, the unambiguous person doesn't care because at least the light skinned adversary, as Amanda put it, can be seen as ugly and humbled by someone that she thinks can relate to her inferiority complex as a dark skinned person. But that's all I had for this video. I'll be honest with y'all. I don't personally feel like I have experienced featurism. I don't feel that I benefit from it, but also I'm Southern. So I feel like if I didn't, they would have let my ass know. So if you have any experiences with featurism, please hop down in the comments and tell me about that. Because again, I'm always wanting to learn from other people's experiences. But if you like this video, please thumbs up. And if you like my vibes, subscribe. And I'd love to see you next time. Bye.